A last look to the Eat Street Market. A glance towards CBD. Then having breakfast. And off we go towards the south.
Warum sind wir aus Brisbane? Stellen wir schon wieder schräg.
As soon as we are out of the channel, we heel again. That means nice wind. So while the freshly repaired autopilot is steering, we can enjoy watching the regatta. In the distance, CBD is still visible, but we are headed to Peel Island.
Gemütlich ist das Seglerleben ab und zu.
After a very busy start and an hour relaxed sailing, we are entering narrow channels under sail. The watercolor, the charts, the buoys, everything fits together. So we safely turn towards the anchorage.
Willkommen zu einer populären Anchorage.
It's not the lonely, remote island anchorage anymore. The sunset is still great though. The next day we explore the park on shore. It's only permitted to walk along the beach. Still, it's worth the visit. We are heading on today towards the south.
Downwind, lame ducks.
Another boat is lifting anchor at the same time as we do.
Nicht viel Wind.
There's not much wind, so we both sail very slow. Traffic, however, is intense. 2 ferries cross our path at the same time. We follow the narrow channels, while the other boat is following us. Again, it's very narrow. Therefore we are sticking to the headsail. We don't want to make more than 3 knots. It's too shallow around here.
Das ist jetzt der Moreton Bay und the Gold Coast.
This is a popular way to get from Brisbane to the Gold Coast. However, it's narrow, shallow, and some other dangers are around. Careful as we are, we're just going under staysail. The smaller local ships go much faster. It's for a reason we are going slow. We have a little more than a foot water below the keel. And the water here is very muddy, so we don't see anything. We are glad the maps turn out to be accurate. However, once we clear the places where we have shallow water, we get to the place where our air draft is limiting us. The power line ahead may be an issue.
Ankerstimmung zum Analysieren, ob wir sicher unter dem Stromkabel durch mögen.
We anchor to analyze the situation in depth and see if we go through tomorrow.
Da müssen wir auch nicht. Geschafft.
Yeah, we did it! So now we have to take care of the shallow areas again. This looks scary, and we were absolutely scared. This time we made it with 3 feet below the keel. The others went way faster. Not all of them, though.
Man sind vorsichtig.
To add a bit to the intensity, traffic and moored boats added up. Then we passed long stretches of parks, mangroves, and easier to navigate waters. But not for too long. We entered a junction. Hard to starboard! And we turned swiftly around another obstacle and go down into the next channel.
Das rechtsbohige Gewirr.
Now it gets broader and slightly deeper if you keep to the right side of the channel.
Geht's jetzt richtig Hochhaus durch.
As we get closer to the Gold Coast, the buildings get bigger. And soon we see the next high rises, as well as villas. We drop anchor as long as there's some nature around us, and we head over to the other side, back to the Pacific. There we bump into our first wallaby! It seems the coastlines here are very sandy. All along the coast we see huge beaches. We are reminded of our visit to Fraser Island 8 years ago. Fraser is a sand island. We head back to the inner bay through typical Australian vegetation and back to the typical Gold Coast look. While we are having breakfast, others are already on tour. We will go to town today too, however, by dinghy. The first thing to do is to cross the Gold Coast Highway. Then we are surprised to see tram lines downtown, and soon we hear a very familiar noise. We do some shopping and some latte macchiatoing, and then head back towards the dinghy. A nice park borders the bay, with big playground, barbecue facility, great views, and also a very modern dinghy dock. The Gold Coast is always busy. In the evening, the sailboats come back. Looks like there was a regatta. And as it gets night, we enjoy the starlight.
Sternenhimmel.
Well, it's the anchorage by night. This morning is time for some beach walk. On the other side of the spit, the skyline of Surfer's Paradise, the Gold Coast, etc. is awaiting us. Back to the boat, we start the engine and head out the seaway. The crossing of this bar is very easy, but then we have to sail upwind, with over 20 knots on our nose. We get a little beating. Jade Akka gets a little beating. However, we make good progress. The autopilot seems to be doing well, even in these conditions. So we managed to relax a bit. The heavy conditions don't last too long, fortunately. Towards the evening, the wind decreases. The waves had been banging our hull. The whole boat was shivering. We were once more impressed. And I learned that talking into the camera upwind is a bad idea. The high rises slowly disappeared behind the horizon. The wind got easier and we sailed into Yamba early next morning. We dropped anchor a little up the river. After passing the bar, there was a little bit rocky. We stayed outside the Iluka boat basin, as again our keel got very close to ground. It was a good spot to watch the locals. We visited Yamba on the southern side of the river and walked Iluka and its rainforest on the northern shore. Would you expect a rainforest here? We didn't. With the sandy ground and the nice weather, it didn't really feel like a rainy rainforest. It was a really nice walk. The walk led to a beachhead with a nice little park. Seeing land from the boat is always much different from being on shore. Sometimes it's tempting just to stay on wonderful Jade Akka, but the little excursions are always super interesting. As there was not too much to see, we decided to head on to Coffs Harbour. The bar was easy to cross. The wind came from a good angle, so it was a super relaxed sail going farther south. We had sailed overnight, so after breakfast on board, we explored town. From the beach, we followed the river upstream. And as soon as we were in the center, we headed for iced coffee. We still feel like in Wonderland after crossing the Pacific. Back to the pier, we learned about Coff Harbour's history. And we were again surprised by the nice infrastructure and beaches here. At the head, it's a bird sanctuary, with great views all around. As it is a bit a rolly anchorage, we decided to go on next day. This time we had northern events, so we decided to go head sail only. And indeed, the winds were so good, we made it to Port Stephens instead of Port Macquarie. The Bay of Port Stephens is bigger than Sydney Harbour, and they call it the dolphin capital of Australia. So the dolphin watch arrived while we had breakfast.
Lecker pancakes.
Not only we and the dolphins were hungry, but also this bird. It had a hard time getting this fish down his throat. As usual, we went to shore to explore the city. It was a short excursion with shopping some groceries, and soon we went back on board to watch another wonderful sunset. To exercise our legs, we walked on a lookout. Somewhere far, far down south there must be Sydney. The walk took us through some eucalyptus forests, some neighborhoods of the town, and finally back to the marina and the weighing station. There we were more than surprised. A tiger shark is hanging there. In the news we saw a few incidents reported, but we hadn't been aware they hunted sharks here.
Good on you guys, thank you. Good job. There's too many of them. I'm proud of you. Good on you guys. Look at that one. Tiger's in a mako. Did a good public service today, guys. Good on you. Look at them.
We left with very mixed feelings. We looked back at the lookout and headed back to Jade Akka to find out more about shark management in Australia.